but yeah, it's good to see everybody. Um, it is 11. We are recording. We could actually go ahead and officially start, and probably others will join in. So October Maker Roundtable. Welcome everybody. I think we all know each other, correct? Yeah, okay. Just making sure, I sometimes forget. Yeah, Bill, do you know this woman, Kyle Ann? I don't know if you guys have.
She's got to be, she had to have been hoping I wouldn't be here. She's got to be sick to death of looking at my face on this screen.
Never.
Yeah, but now you're only screen buddies instead
I
of
know.
face-to-face buddies, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Still getting
So,
used to it.
yeah. Ken, what state do you live in?
Colorado, so I still got another hour before 11 o'clock. So I'm just going to,
Okay.
okay? Is that okay?
So what's funny is I have told people you live in Colorado, and then I don't know, referenced you being in Colorado, and then suddenly I had this thought that you were in New York. And no, not in New York. Okay.
No,
Okay,
I've,
so my mind was right. That's good.
I've
Uh,
visited but never lived.
okay. Um, so I have lots of things. If anybody has anything to talk about, I'm gonna say, go ahead, because I have so many questions right now.
Yeah, I just want to talk about this real quick.
Okay. Oh,
So
the fidget?
this is a Kobayashi fidget cube. And I don't want to talk about the cube. I want to
Oh,
talk about something else, and that is I printed a ton of these recently for my daughter who teaches choir, whose kids can no longer take a cell phone into the room. And so now they're all antsy. So I printed a bunch of these for her to hand out to her students. And I discovered that the model that you print from Thingiverse, the model you print from Thingiverse is a beautiful model, but it prints with some really sharp edges on a 3D printer.
okay.
And so I contacted the original designer via Thingiverse and said, "Hey, can I get the solid model? I'd like to add chamfers to it." By the way, you cannot add chamfers to an STL file. It's just impossible. Um, so he said, "Yeah, here I'll put." He pointed me to Tinkercad where he had done the work. And I thought, well, let me see if I can export this from Tinkercad. And it could only be an STL and OBJ and some other SVG, none of which would have helped. But there was a link in Tinkercad to send the design to Fusion.
Huh.
And I struggled and struggled and struggled to do it, only to discover that I had actually succeeded 4 times. So I had 4 tabs in Fusion. I went to Fusion, and there are a lot of edges here that I had to do this with, and had to discover some limitations on how Fusion would chamfer a rounded edge. But here it is, all chamfered. So what I wanted to do is just bring it up that Tinkercad. I'm always amazed at what Tinkercad can do. At the amount of complexity that it can handle in imported things. But this ability to export to another Reddit Autodesk tool is amazing. So if you're ever in a position where you're dealing with STL files and you want to do something with them, Tinkercad is really a beautiful intermediary, or directly a place where you can deal with those things and customize them, where you couldn't do it any other place that I know of. Maybe Blender or some, for those people who are real nerds, they might be able to use that. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this. I was amazed.
Yeah, it seems like that is good information to put further out than just this as well. Like maybe other people know this, but I mean, I don't know where even AT maker, AT makers and users like on Facebook and, but just some information about how to do that. Seems like it would help a lot of people. So
Yeah,
where
I've
is
run into
that?
that problem plenty of times, Ken, and I didn't know you could export it that way.
Yeah,
So that's helpful. Thanks.
you can export it 4 times that way. Each time will look like it failed. That's the problem.
So where is your new design now? Where does that live?
Well, I just did this last night, so I'm gonna.
Come on, you don't have it available for us yet?
Sorry, but for a reasonable price, I can make it available to you, Scout. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to verify that I had caught all the edges because some of them were internal and I had to kind of work real close to select it. Um, so yeah, I'm just checking now to make sure I got them all. And then yeah, I will upload it as a remix
On to Tinkercad?
on the
No,
Thingiverse.
on to Thingiverse. Right,
Yeah.
right. What I meant. Okay.
And I'll upload the Fusion file as well, so people can start directly with the solid model.
Well, it all sounds very cool. Anybody else have anything they want to, Jessica does?
So recently, in the last couple months, I've learned about a Switch group called Switched. And they have these switches. They're kind of like the jelly bean. You can take the tops off.
Huh.
They have little lines in it. And I am trying to get a pink one made. And I do have, of course, I had to buy this one because I had to figure out how it worked first. But you get different tops for it. And they're all 3D printed. And it's just like, it's not the easiest thing to make, but it's definitely better, like, if somebody can't, like, do all the parts for, like, a interact switch. And all this is kind of like how, we did the popper switch. It just has a little key thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, uh-huh. And did you just buy that and it came with 4 caps?
No, you had to buy them separately, but I bought them so I could start getting them 3D printed at the library to figure out how they work. So I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm meeting with the guy right after this.
Hey,
Also in Missouri.
Jessica, can you put a link to that site in the chat?
Yeah.
Who's the guy you're meeting with?
His name is Eric. It's actually it's a nonprofit.
So we have a little
You
bit of
have to make
insight there.
Is it
Uh,
is it Aaron?
Eric.
It's
Oh. Who?
so that's Eric Cole. He and his wife Dana founded Switched. Dana's office is 3 doors down from mine. She's a PT here. So they actually started it with some help from another nonprofit here in town that helped me get my lab off the ground in the beginning. And I could be mistaken, but I think Eric might just give you the STL files. Like they
He
are
does.
okay, good.
You
Yeah, because
just
they are not.
you
Oh, go ahead.
you
Sorry.
make a free he has a free login. You create a free account, and then you have access to all these different instructions and things you can switch adapt. Then you have all the access to the switches, and I asked him to make texture tops, and now he's making texture tops for them.
Yeah, they're great. And that Switch is a really nice design. Like he did a good job on it.
Cool. So when you get the parts printed, then you buy the guts and you're putting them together, Jessica?
Well, you get them printed at the library, and then you pay when you pick it up. But the nice thing was, let me see if I can find the top. There it is. So we pretty much got it. Everybody kept saying, "Oh, you're not going to be able to get the supports out. Well, you don't know that I have all my Cricut doodads that I can pretty much use to force anything out. But it's somewhat good, but it has trouble screwing in when you screw it on. I have my switch tester, so I'll show you.
So
So
I'm just surprised you had supports at all.
Yeah,
I don't know that you needed to print that with supports.
you do. Because it has lines in the inside.
But
And the guy tried doing it with
your printer should be able to handle that. Those are, they're not terrible overhangs.
right.
when he did the one without supports, it completely fell apart the
But
inside.
then they must have a cooling issue with their printer.
Yeah. So, but then with this one, screw it on. It screws on, but you can't get it to work. So I'm meeting with him to try and figure that out.
Because it just doesn't go down, it doesn't give you any flex.
It goes up, but it doesn't bounce enough.
Huh. Interesting.
It's really,
Yeah, so,
like it goes down, up and down, but it doesn't bounce.
huh. It seems like that would be the threads, then just being a little wonky.
Yeah, like I'm meeting with him tonight, well, later to see if I can get the piece to get keep digging in there to clear out debris. Like we got most of it out, but
Mhm. Does that print as one piece, that cap?
yes,
Okay,
it has like a movable inner part.
okay,
Let me show you this one. You can tell this one moves better,
right.
but this one's not as good.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I was up at 3 and I went back to sleep. I have printed a similar part, and yes, I needed supports also.
Huh,
It wasn't
That's
just you.
Hmm.
And it was a pain in the ass to take out the supports.
I wonder, Ron, if there's an opportunity there to refactor that design.
Yeah,
Not if you got
I'm
my
sure there
surgical
is.
tools.
I'm sure there is. And I'm a big guy on not supports. I hate them.
Oh, yeah.
So I always try to redesign stuff or design stuff that doesn't require them.
Yeah, I haven't looked in detail at the STL files for that switch, but I'm trying to figure out why he made it threaded at all. I guess to make it interchangeable, it's easier than gluing it. Because interesting. Yeah, the
Oh yeah.
previous version I saw was not so they've refined that.
The last one, you had to literally get it with all your might to get it in. And then if you did it wrong, all the
Yeah.
tabs would break off. That's why I like this, where you just, if it's good done right, you can just, hard to do with one hand. You can just, it's a lot nicer than the other one where I had to get my dad to, to get it on.
Yeah, so I have printed plenty of screw interfaces, and maybe the problem here is he's just got too, I don't know if it's large or small of a thread or whatever it is here, but he just changed the thread size, and that would not require, well, unless there's some funny thing going on internally that allows it to move into the threads to move independent of the rest of the top, all print in place or whatever. Yeah, I printed plenty of threads and never needed supports. So there's got to be ways to do this so that it doesn't need supports, I hope.
Yeah. I'm meeting with him after this, so. But I don't know all the 3D printing stuff. I have one, but I've never used it because it's just so hard.
Maybe you should invite Ken to your meeting.
Would you want to, Ken?
I'd be happy to, but first we got to find a way to roast Scout for that recommendation. Because he was doing it maliciously and not to be helpful.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know you don't.
I've also had really mixed success with printing threaded parts. And I think to Ken's point, like a lot of it comes down to the precision of the printer, and how fine-tuned the printer is. As that also has impacted whether we needed supports or not. I've printed with and without supports. Uh, Two thoughts there. One is I have found there's probably a name for this, like engineers probably know this. I don't. That if I'm trying to screw together 3D printed threaded parts, and the first time I meet some resistance, and inevitably there is some, no matter how clean I think the threads are, the technique has seemed to be to just back off of it and then gently kind of just repetitively push at it, just the slightest bit, and it seems to wear down whatever little imperceptibly small bits are in the way. And then I can progressively get further and further until I have a clean, smooth. I'm deburring it essentially with its mate part.
Actually,
Um,
Bill, the engineering this topic here would be tolerances. So you'd build tolerances into it so you wouldn't have to deburr it in the process of assembling it.
yes, I agree with you. I respect that. But if you get those tolerances too loose, then you wind up with a part that, is jiggly,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is also not the
I think
right
it
term.
needs to be looser.
And so the other thing is, Kyle Ann and Ron have both seen me have to apologize to our engineering student for not taking her recommendation seriously enough over the last couple of days. But she finally convinced me to purchase new printers of a different type than what we've had before. Still FDM printers, but the Bamboo X1 Carbon. I am stunned by the quality of the prints coming off of that printer, compared to our Crealities or our Prusa.
Really?
They don't look like FDM prints. They are really shockingly good.
Well, you might ask her what her layer height is, because she could be printing at a different layer height than you have been used to, and suddenly, oh God, everything looks
Oh,
great.
yeah.
And yeah, well, there's a reason for it.
Yep, absolutely.
If I could actually jump in on that, I am using my startup funds to buy my first printer for my new lab, and I'm going with the same printer. And it looks, from what I can tell, I've never used it before, but it looks like you can't replace just the nozzle. They don't sell just a nozzle replacement on the website.
Welcome to Bamboo Lab.
Okay.
So Bamboo Lab, yeah, it produces a wonderful printer. However, it is not fundamentally designed to be maintained by the user. So yeah, people talk about how great it is, how you can save, I don't know, a couple $100 over a Prusa, but that Prusa is designed to be maintained by users. Yeah, I have a special feeling for Bamboo Lab. Apparently, so does Stratasys, who's suing them,
Oh, wow.
potentially out of existence.
I'm getting a Bamboo and a Prusa, so I have more experience with the Prusa and figure I can fix that if the Bamboo breaks on me.
Sure.
Well, Stratasys has a special place in the hearts of most, yeah. Their approach to trying to kill open source has not been great. But but you're absolutely right, Ken, that with the right parameters, with tight enough tolerances in the machine, the print quality can be just really exceptional. And I think for threaded parts, that level of tolerance is going to make it a lot easier to get good threaded parts. So, Jessica, one of the questions might be, what are they printing on? What is the layer height? And if the machine they're using and the nozzle size.
I know the infill is 15%.
Okay. That'll
And
give you a
they
good
recommend
lightweight
doing the
part.
tree supports. That's about all I know.
Okay. Yeah, so whoever's actually running the printer, I would ask the nozzle size and the layer height, because those are going to be the parameters that really help dial in the tolerance
All right,
on the threaded parts.
Put it in the
I'm gonna
Want
write
that in the
that
chat?
down. Yeah, can you put
I'll throw
that
it
in
in
the
the chat.
chat?
Yeah, it'd be wonderful to know what printer they are printing on.
Oh, they use a Bamboo Lab, I think.
Oh, well, then they should be,
Oh,
they should be able to do all this without supports. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna take a look at these STL files. I'll join this site and download these files. I'm dying to look at the design.
Ken, will you be able to come on with me next meeting? Right after this?
Yeah, sure.
It does, I looked at that file and it does look like they have old versions. So if an old version was not threaded and didn't have
The
that.
old version is like nearly impossible to put together unless like you have to have like
I thought-
superhuman strength.
I thought Bill had some luck with it, but if not, then that's not useful.
Oh, it's doable, but it's just really easy for it to go wrong. Like this is if once I get the 3D printing like size and stuff down, this is gonna be like a breeze probably to put together.
Good.
Because the other ones, the other parts that I bought, it's a breeze to put it together. It's just like a jelly bean or like a big red. You just twist it on. No screws, no nothing.
That's great. So, just to be clear, I am correct that you cannot replace the nozzle on a Bamboo. You have to replace the entire hot end.
I don't know, but would I be surprised to find out that you had to replace that entire rectangular chunk? No, I would not be surprised.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking it is. I guess I'll find out at some
So
point.
you can either go on, search, or I'm sure you could quickly find a YouTube video, if there's a way to replace the nozzle on a Bamboo Lab printer, P1P or whatever you've got. There'll be a YouTube video about it too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Kyle, I'm on their website right now, and they've got a spare parts section for the X1 series. They have every part I can see or I can think of listed there.
Yeah, you can see the nozzles.
Let's see if
I
I go
didn't see
into.
nozzles in that section.
Oh, okay.
I can look again. I just wanted to check if anybody knew.
Don't have one.
Okay.
Wouldn't have one.
Tell us how you really feel, Ken. All right. I have a question. I've just been given all these toys, and like an idiot, I just went on Amazon and was like, hey, what toys look fun? Yeah. So anyway, so I have my Switch that I like, and I was just making a battery interrupter end. I want to just use my Switch with the battery interrupter, but it won't work. My cord has 3 wires, and I always just put one down.
Did you do the thing where you put it in the battery port like a little flat, and then when you put in the battery, it just pushes it into place?
No, it's a weird. Oh shit, I've got it closed. It's I have to drop the batteries in from the top. And so then the lid has the other connection for the batteries, and it has a tab, so I have to slide this lid in sideways and drop it down. So
Sounds complicated.
yeah, it's not ideal. And then the whole damn toy turns, so I can't. Woo, it's fun. Okay.
Usually with me, again, I use when you get to the part with the wire coming out, I use my Cricut tool, and if it's cheap plastic, like I have a straight one. Yeah, I have a straight one, and I just wedge it in the plastic and make a hole, and then I get my scissors, my Cricut scissors, and then I widen the hole. So for when you get to that part.
Yeah,
But
I made some holes. I dug in all different ways, and nothing has worked. So when I went, I had to go into the side. But then when I wedged my wire in, it didn't spin, and I thought, well, there's worse things that just not going to spin anymore. It's just going to light up and sing.
did Like, I know one thing with these switches is mono and stereo. Sometimes when you're using the mono switch, it gives it more power, so that'll work. But then sometimes if I use like a stereo one, like really makes it run slow and only does half the things. But then I also have some mono switches that do it that way, but usually it's stereo makes it have less power and do less things from what I learned.
So
Hey,
how does the toy trigger? I mean,
Up here, there's a button. So that was the other thing. I pulled the button out. This was the like, oh shit. Sorry, I should have taken the batteries out. I pulled the button out and I taped the button closed because I thought, oh, I'll just trigger it. I'll just trigger the switch and then run the battery interrupter. And when I taped the button, which I thought was in the open position, it was always off. It wouldn't be on because like you push it to turn it on and you also push it to turn it off.
so what it is, it's a software-based switch. It's not a I mean, it's a hardware switch, but it's a soft switch. So with this, it's a momentary switch that triggers the microcontroller to do its thing. So a battery interrupter is not going to work in that situation.
so
Okay.
you heard the magic word, microcontroller inside the toy.
Yeah.
All
Done.
those simple circuit things you understand, throw them out.
Yeah, done. Okay, so does that mean, Ron, that there is not a decent way for a ding dong like me to switch adapt this toy? Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not calling you a ding dong.
No, it's okay. You didn't. I did.
I'll do that.
So
Yeah.
what I would, if I was going to adapt that toy, there's two ways I would go about it. One, you could try to route up to that hand and just have a momentary push button wired into that, just basically switch adapting that hand, in other words.
Right.
What I'd probably do is I'd probably pull it apart, look at the circuit board, see where that switch is going to, and then wiring into that.
Right. That's
But then you're going to be soldering onto a printed circuit board that may or may not have test pads, so it ends up being a bigger deal.
yeah, and quite frankly, I took it apart and I can't even see how to take it apart anymore. So I can't even get to anything.
That's very classic. They're usually glued together.
Yeah, so I'm gonna sew this little guy back up and give it to my coworker, and it's not gonna be switch adapted.
I think it's a cool toy, but that's the problem is there's so many cool toys out there, but because it's cheaper to put microcontrollers and do soft switches and many things than physical, they go the cheapest route.
Of
The same
course.
reason they do hot glue instead of screws. It depends if the labor is cheaper than the manufacturing,
Yeah. God.
Sorry.
No. It's actually good. I don't need to switch adapt things that I can't. All right, here's the next one. Look at the cute bird. It's got in its butt. You're not even going to be able to see it. Now, I'm not even going to try. There's a little port to recharge it. And I asked this somewhere, can you switch adapt a rechargeable thing? Yes, was the answer. But there's this tiny switch. So when I turn that on and hit it, it's a cat toy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can turn it on. Is there a way to switch adapt this out of this? This actually comes out. This is the parts.
Can that be taken apart?
It does have screws on it, yes.
Okay, well, it's probably using a little spring switch in there. What they do is they have a solid metal probe in the middle, and then they have a little spring around it. And by shaking it, it hits the spring, hits the point and triggers it, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
It's kind of like, well, it's not like a tilt switch, but it's the same sort of idea. Judging from the size, it's going to be a giant pain in the ass.
That's kind of what I figured. So actually, what I thought was hanging it. I don't know from what, but hang it, and then just put all I can think of is teeter totter. You know, something with a fulcrum to hit it.
Right.
You know, that way a kid could hit something on their wheelchair and knock the bird, and then it would fly up and down on this springy string.
I think that's a better idea. Sometimes low tech is better. And I think a kid hitting a bird with a teeter totter is a cool, fun thing to do.
Right. And, you know, or something. I mean, actually, if they could hang it, the kid could probably hit the bird, you know, reach out, but you could kind of work towards that or something.
Yeah, like a piñata. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. So, okay. So pain in the ass number 2, doable, but not worth it for.
Actually, so that I think what we've discovered here, Scout, is there's more to the world of Switch of adapted toys than switches, and
Right.
it's a good thing.
I mean, yes, and I know that the cheap toys you buy all have these, you know, incredibly tiny wires, and it's ridiculous to switch adapt a bunch of them. And then I bought some bubble blowers. I took this one apart, and it seems very straightforward. It's got a, you know, a trigger that is just hitting a tiny button, right? Battery compartment and a motor. That I think I can do. Although I was hoping that both Bill and Ron would be here today, so I could ask one of you to remind me how to do this efficiently, so that I don't waste 2 of my bubble blowers out of 4 of my bubble blowers. Trying to refigure this out because I have not done this since last Christmas.
So Scott, just for clarification, this toy has both a switch and a trigger.
This bubble blower
Yeah.
has 1 switch. I
But
mean,
you
the trigger
pull the
is,
trigger.
yes, the
So
trigger,
both
it-
have to be in the right configuration for this to work.
this is it's a plastic piece that's the trigger. That's it.
Okay, but
And
that's engaging something else other than the switch.
No, it is hitting the switch, this plastic piece.
So it's always, so that's how you don't have to hit a separate switch to turn it on and then press this trigger.
I do not believe so. I did not put batteries in this one yet, but there's no other thing to
Okay.
touch.
Okay.
It is, I think it is just on off, you know. This one actually looks really straightforward.
Yeah, well, what you're going to find, one of the things you need to look at with all of these is how that switch works. Is it momentary or is it a latching switch? Because when you think of latching switch, that's like your walls, you know, your overhead light switch in your house. And those, you know, it's either on or off. When you see the soft switches, that almost always leads into microcontroller land. You know,
That's
which they could still be adapted, but it depends on the toy.
Are you saying the soft switch, when you hit it once, it's on, and when you hit it again, it's off?
Yeah, that'd be an example of one, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, this one
versus a pure momentary, like a bubble blower. That one's probably straightforward because it's
Right.
probably as you hold the trigger, it shoots bubbles, and when you let go of the trigger, it
Yep.
stops.
That I'm almost positive that's how it works.
So you're telling me you didn't try it first?
You know, I was spent all my time. These just came in yesterday. And
Okay, well that's all right. You
On
gotta
this-
follow a methodology.
Hey, Ron, he spent all of his time batting that bird.
Yeah, I know. This damn thing spins.
No, this one was super fun. This one was the fun one. Well, I did spend time with the bird. This one goes until it hits something and then turns and goes and lights up. I like this one the best. Um, yeah, I don't know how to even do this because how would you switch adapt? The only thing you can do is put it on a wheelchair tray or in a contained area if you're gonna attach a switch, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna try to do a switch port and so that it's still doable, just when you turn it on.
You need some wireless switch skills.
Well, you know, as I am barely capable of doing my wired switch skills, I'm just not there yet.
That's my 300 and 400 level course that I offer.
Yeah, well, I'm still at the 50 level.
The 098 English for second language. Okay.
Right. I'm in the ESL category still. The SSL switch as a second language or third. All right, well, those are my toy troubles right now. And I think my note to self is it's like I have such a hard time spending a lot of money. It's not even my money on these toys, but I should just look at what other people are switch adapting and buy those.
Well, to a point, because I'm working with the folks that Make Good Design in Louisiana, and they bought a whole, you know, 'tis the season, everybody's adapting toys. And we spent some time on Saturday opening up stuff. They had gotten buttons and toys because of a recommendation by somebody reputable on Instagram who does this, right? But when we popped these open, they had a different revision of the circuit boards.
Oh,
So what was easy for the other person now became almost impossible. The one version that the person used had test pads that you could solder onto pretty easily. This one doesn't. So now you're scraping at leads on a printed circuit board and everything else. And that, forget about it. When you're trying to teach people who've never soldered before,
right.
not going to happen. So that's the caveat is even if people have converted the toy, doesn't mean you still can. Or what
Wow.
does Amazon ship you? Do they ship you
Right.
the one version or the other? And
Right.
they had to return, you know, like 30 toys because they just weren't going to be adaptable.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, I'm actually looking at like, do I need to get some different toys? Luckily, there's a wonderful man who funds things in Missouri, and um, he would probably gladly buy me some more toys.
Yeah, a lot of the times, like if I find one at Walmart that ends up working, I'll like go back and get the rest of the stock.
What,
And hope it's the same batch.
right.
Usually.
Do you have a couple of things right now that you like?
I've been doing a lot of remote control cars.
Those sound hard.
No, they're actually if you have some soldering skills, they're actually easier than you'd think.
Huh.
Especially, and this is an example of where the cheaper the car, the easier it is. So
Uh,
I have Walmart sells, I don't know what, some brand of little cars, and they're like $10 each. And they're just digital. So you just need you need more than one button. You need more than one switch if you want the functionality. So you need like left, right, forward, and maybe back. You can't use it with a joystick.
oh, right.
But it's instead of like putting one switch adaptation inside of it, you're doing 3 or 4 and having little pigtails hang out and you hook switches to it. Those I've had good success with. And then the other thing that I've been working on is more sophisticated. And Bill and Kyle Ann saw this a little bit, or Bill did the proportional cars, the real remote control cars, in other words. So these, instead of doing standard just forward, back at full acceleration, you could steer and accelerate them slowly like a real vehicle. And I've had success. I'm working with somebody right now, and we've had some good success with that. Let me actually, if you have time, I could switch over my video.
Yeah, I'll probably start there. That sounds awesome for me.
So yeah, you want to start with this one. So what you have, this is a probably a car that's in about the $200 range. So it's more pro-am car. And these have remote controls that have a proportional steering wheel. So as you turn it, it turns the appropriate amount. And then they have this trigger mechanism, which is for acceleration and for brake and reverse. And the way that a proportional controller works is it has two potentiometers inside of it. So it's not just switches. So what I did is I went in here and I modified it. And I basically spliced into those potentiometers. And I now have a switch here that will either, this is a toggle switch, and it will either go between use the internal or use external. So right now it's external. And then I have this jack here, which is actually a 4-pin TRRS jack. And for plugging in TRS cable like this, you plug that in, and that gets wired up to a joystick like this.
Oh,
So this is a standard gaming joystick that's in here that I put a power chair topper on. And the big thing for this user is that he doesn't have the ability to grasp, and he can't use both his hands. So he had to have all the controls in one. So now this car, you push it forward and it goes forward, left, right. So it's driving a car with a joystick. God, I hope it's working still. So like, here's the steering. So it's pretty cool. So, and this is, and what I found is a lot of, there's a good number of folk who are adults who want toys in their hobbies, right? Fishing is very common. That comes up all the time. But RC stuff comes up a lot too. So this actually required no microcontroller, required me going in there and doing wiring work. So you had to have that skill, but it didn't require any microcontroller, which I was really happy with. So let's see if I can tear apart the joystick real quick. I don't glue anything. Ron's rule, never glue. It just has this sort of gaming joystick you could find on Amazon for $1 or $2, and then it gets wired up. The other thing you could see, another one of Ron's rules, is I always use cords on all ends. I don't hard cord anything because cords break. People break things. So this is going out today. I'm also working on a boat for him, and the boat I got converted. The boat was easier in one way because it was digital. It's just forward, back, left, right, full power. The problem is the boat has a bad design, and it requires like 6 AA batteries, but 6 AA batteries barely power it.
Huh.
So they underpowered this poor boat. So unless you have like completely fresh Duracell batteries, it doesn't even want to start up. And so we're trying to brainstorm like, okay, could we put an external battery pack on it? Yes. But now you're talking about a lithium ion battery on the water. Okay, don't really want to do that because a little bit of water is going to short it. You short a lithium ion and it goes in the thermal runaway almost instantaneously. You learn that lesson real quick if you're adapting toys with rechargeable batteries. If you short that, you're probably going to burn yourself within a second or two. They go into thermal runaway that quickly. That's one of the reasons I don't recommend rechargeable toys for adaptation, because if you don't wire it right, you could set that battery in thermal. Now, on a little toy, it's probably just going to melt the toy or destroy the battery. But, you know, like a camera battery that goes out of, you know, in thermal runaway, you get a huge pop noise. It sounds like a gunshot.
Wow.
The double A's, triple A's, C's, and D's, that's your safe area. Okay, enough of my car.
It's cool.
Hey, a little bit of follow up. Jessica, I was able to get a hold of Eric, and he said to let you know he actually recently updated the files with improved tolerances on those threads. So you might want to make sure you have the most recent version. And
Like, when did he
also gave,
update it?
I did not ask.
Well, I'll talk to
but-
him right afterwards.
Oh, I thought it was the person running the 3D printer you were talking with. It's Eric.
No, so Eric is
Uh,
making the switches. I have to talk to Jason at my library who 3D prints it.
But your
Gotcha.
meeting is with Eric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, shoot, I wouldn't have even bothered. Sorry, I'm not trying to. I thought it was the other person you were getting ready to meet with. So I did, however, tell him to consider joining this group in the future.
Yeah, I think he'd really enjoy some of this.
He
Sorry
probably
about all the alarms in the background. There was just a fire call.
Oh, great.
We
Somebody get a
won't.
lithium battery wet?
My boat, my boat.
All right. So who else has something? Can I switch adapt this guy?
Absolutely not.
Hey, and Scout, that switched toys link that Jessica put in there, they post a ton of like guides, switch adaptation guides for specific toys.
Okay.
So that would be a good place to look, a good source for what works. But I know they have run into that exact same problem Ron described, where last year we got ready to do a build day, cracked the toys open, and it's different from
Last
the
time.
ones they had done before.
Yeah, that's hard. I think people find a cheaper way and go with it.
I
Yeah.
have something that I've already talked to Bill and Ron about, but I would love especially your input, Scout, since you work with so many different people with disabilities. So we're building a new building for the OT, well, for all the health sciences here. And there's money for buying stuff for the building. And I've been asked to compile a list of items that we would need to do kind of like a smart apartment kind of thing to teach students about environmental control. And so at home, I use like Google and Alexa, but these students are in their 20s, like they know how to use those. And so I am hesitant to request those kinds of systems because I think the students won't learn much from that. But there are some other options like Home Assistant, and Bill told me about one that I think was it Samsung makes. But I know Bill said Home Assistant is pretty techy and it might be hard for a lot of people to approach. There are also issues around privacy because if you're wanting to train users on these systems in hospital and clinical settings, a lot of them don't allow like the Google and Alexa items, but I think Home Assistant would probably be more acceptable.
So I have my quick thing is your students might be very aware of, you know, how to use their Alexa device, but learning how to use Alexa from the point of view of disability is kind of different. Simple thing like if you're blind, how do you know when she's listening? Because it's a blue light that, or the light changes color, but there's a setting where you can get a tone to play. And then if you're blind, when you say, Alexa, the tone kicks in. And if you don't hear that, then she's not listening. You don't need to,
Sure.
so those kinds of things, I think that most people don't ever look into. It's just like all the things that your iPhone can do,
Mhm.
but I think it is very similar. So I would say, go forth with all the systems, teach them about how they can be disability friendly. Amazon is really doing a lot of good things around disability, as much as we all might, love to hate them. They've got money, so they put it in all the areas. There was one other thing and then I know it's not what you want, but I also think how to do these things without internet.
Mhm.
So what I call my dumb home devices.
Mhm.
What are the alternatives to the smart home devices so people can still have somewhat, not the full functionality. You can't talk to most of these things, but how do you make something basically switch activated for $15 with no Wi-Fi, so you
Mhm.
have those wireless remotes and things like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that came up with Bill and Ron as well. So I was doing a little digging yesterday, and my understanding was that Google does not pair very well with switches, but Alexa does. Is that your understanding as well?
what you mean? What do you mean with switches? What?
Like switch adapting items.
Oh, I don't know. I
Okay.
don't have that experience.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
don't know
very
that
useful.
either one really does without a kind of an intermediary layer like Home Assistant. I
Mhm.
wouldn't try switch adapting any of those because they're proprietary hardware too. And so good luck getting into them without destroying them. I,
Yeah.
I, to your kind of original question, Kylan, and I guess I didn't understand this in the prior email, but you made the point of, your students are pretty well familiar with the kind of existing off the shelf options from Google and Apple. I would say, or Amazon and Apple even. One, I would not assume that. We always have this assumption that younger people are more tech savvy, but that is not like the evidence does not bear out that that's a good predictor of how comfortable they are, whether they're early adopters or even adopters at all of technology. But I would also say, even if assuming they are, just because they're somewhat familiar with it, doesn't mean it's not the right thing to teach. I kind of always start from what is the ubiquitous option. It's not
Mhm.
about what they're familiar with or comfortable with. It's what are their clients going to be familiar with and comfortable with.
Mhm.
Sure, and I would definitely make sure to talk about the options, but it's about spending time like teaching them how to hook up a light bulb to Alexa. Maybe I should ask my current students. I imagine that most of them know how to do that. I
You,
don't.
I would not
I
consider
don't.
that common
Oh,
at
really?
all. Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like we are past early adoption with these smart home things. Like I have them in my home. I'm not an early adopter.
I think we're at the point where early adopters are starting to disuse these things because so much of the functionality has not panned out the way it was expected or hoped. That's why I moved to Home Assistant, is because it allows me to do all the things that we were originally told these things were going to do out of the box. But a lot of it I've just abandoned, and I've gotten rid of more smart devices in the last couple of years than I've added.
Hmm.
Hmm. Well, do you think that
But
this
that might
this
just be me.
idea of us like a smart apartment is even worthwhile? Do you think these items are going away?
I I don't I don't think they're going away, and I think you're talking about for people that need environmental
Yeah.
control options, meaning doors, lights,
Mhm.
HVAC, like they are critically important. But then there are also uh, there are purpose-built specific ECU options. You need to know, do these things tie in with an AAC device, or like the most common AAC devices? And if so, and I don't know the answer here, like if there are clear routes to use Alexa with the most common AAC devices, that's the one you got to teach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And beyond that, anything that is more consumer driven, like that's for the general population without those considerations, the feature sets change. And I, yeah, I just don't know that it's worth it if it's not tightly integrated with other systems that folks already use.
Right.
That's just my bias.
No, I think that I would support that if it ties in with especially AAC devices. But I mean, I don't know who you're serving, but in OTPT, if you've got a pretty wide range of end users, I mean, absolutely just something simple like telling Alexa to turn on some lights can
Right.
save a fall. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, like to me, that is just simple and a
Right.
big safety feature that, you know, your students can talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
And Alexa has that like what is it called? The
drop in. No, I don't know.
an emergency contact. I forget what they call it through that.
Like a drop-in feature? Is that what you're talking about, where you can open a camera and look in something?
No, I think at least when I got Alexa, maybe it's changed. You could like designate someone as an emergency contact basically, and if you set a phrase, it would contact your emergency contact to tell them you need help.
So check into that because they recently dropped a feature like that and
Oh,
substitute something else which is much less functional. Yeah, but I mean, you can do all the things like call just by saying
yeah.
call so and so. But I'll just say that my 102-year-old, or in a week or so, 102-year-old mother-in-law only trusts one thing, and that's her Echo device.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, and I think people do get really specific. Like, I'll do this, but I won't do that. Like, my mother thinks YouTube is like connected to the devil somehow.
She might not be wrong, but
Right. No,
like
she
the
actually
best
thinks
advice
it's
ever.
TikTok.
The best advice ever, whenever somebody asks, should I get Apple or iPhone, it's or which is better, Apple or iPhone? The answer is the one you already have
Yeah.
is the better option because
Or
you're
the
familiar
one-
with it.
Or the one your support system will support.
Right.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Bill, I would say that offering Apple or iPhone is kind of leading the witness.
Oh, yeah, I did say that, didn't I? Sorry, Apple or iPhone or Android. Thank you. My mistake. You can tell what I switched to recently. So.
Did you really, Bill?
Oh, did you not notice that my text bubbles changed color?
No, I
I
haven't.
went iPhone.
Wow.
Well, la
And so now, if I were to give
they
my own
must be
opinion, I
playing
am much
professors.
happier with that.
They're paying
End of an
professors
era.
too much. Profane.
Oh, okay.
Oh, one thing, Kyle Ann, you with like the Echo devices, you can do crazier things with them. So you can have them control non-standard stuff.
Yeah.
But that ends up being into the maker category, and it also ends up getting you into risk.
Okay.
For example, I've done some projects where Echo devices can control hospital beds by using your voice control. Now, with that, we could avoid some of the liability because the beds have limit switches on them. And they have remote controls already, so it's basically replacing the remote control.
Sure.
But it is possible.
Wow.
Recommended, I don't know. Possible, yes.
How fun.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's most of it, and it's really weird too, because what you do is you have a microcontroller, of course, that gets on your network, and then it simulates a light bulb. and
Mhm.
then you program your Echo or what your Amazon device to send the commands like the equivalent of turn on, turn off, head up, head down, that sort of thing. And because a bed is a standard hospital bed is just like what, 8 buttons or something like that, plus a call button, or maybe including the call button. So in effect, it's 8 switches.
Right.
So you just have to connect those 8 switches. It's as
Yes.
easy as that.
Okay, that's good to know. And I think that that's what I was reading, that Alexa does better than Google.
Yeah, well, part of it is it's been around and people have hacked it longer. A lot of it, this is where Home Assist, it's designed to be hackable and extendable from the get-go.
Mhm.
Amazon and Google and Apple are all walled gardens. They don't, you got to work, it's always a workaround.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's very useful information. Thank you.
And if you need somebody, I mean, I've got a guy that knows a lot about, he presented at Power Up about smart home devices. My guess is he would know if there's AAC connections. Do you want me to connect you two over email?
That would be really great. I'm supposed to put in my recommendations by the end of the week, and I'm still not sure exactly what I'm gonna say we need.
Yeah, I'll email Chris and copy you and see if he's got the information. Or, I mean, have you talked to Shauna Dunaway at all?
I haven't.
Maybe
I
if I
see.
just copy her, then, you know, like it could be a conversation for whoever's got time.
Sure. Does she do much with smart home? I wasn't aware of a
I
person.
don't know, but I mean, she
Okay.
knows shit ton about AAC, so
Yeah, sure.
even if Chris and Shauna had to talk to get you information. Good, you know, I'm all about, you know, getting the right smart people to answer the question.
Great. Yeah, no, that would be great if you could connect me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, all right, I will do that. Well, it is past the hour. If anybody has any other stuff, we can keep going, but otherwise we could take this pause as our break.
When
All
we're
right,
done,
see you
Scout,
in
do
a
you have
few,
after
Ken.
the
What's that again?
See you in a few.
Okay.
All
Bye,
right,
guys.
after the recording, Scout, do you have just 2 minutes to talk one-on-one?
I would love to, but I cannot stop the recording.
Oh, okay.
It is,
I'll shoot you an email. Nothing urgent.
yeah, or give me a call. Yeah, because I can't stop it. We're started. It
Got
just
it.
is
All
automatic.
good.
Okay. All right. Well,
Thanks.
sounds good.
Thanks.
I'm glad
See you.
it's nice to see everybody. All right. Take care.
Bye.